So I'm Carolyn and I'm mum to Emily and Thomas Harris, who are twins. They're over there, they'll be 9 in August. Emily was stay-limited before she was even 2, because at that point we wanted her to go to Park Lane Special School, which she did do on a part-time basis until she was 5. But also at the same time she went to mainstream preschool with Thomas. And it was during those preschool years that we made the decision that we really wanted Emily in mainstream school full-time, and special school wasn't the right environment for her. So she started at Lower Park School in Poynton in reception class in 2008 full-time. Thomas was already there. And she had a fantastic reception year. She was really well supported. Initially she had full-time support, 32.5 hours. And then in year 1, after her statement review, that was increased to 40 hours a week. So the teacher had additional time to differentiate for Emily, and to the teaching assistants to prepare resources, which again we thought was fantastic that we got that. And she also had, continued input from all the therapists. So we were quite happy really with what was happening. There were certain things at school that, things could have been more inclusive, but overall we weren't unhappy, and we never would have thought about taking her out of school. So it came to Emily's annual statement review last year when she was in year 2, last April, and it came totally out of the blue that the head teacher in this massive meeting turned around and said he wasn't able to meet Emily's needs, not with any amount of resources or training. They just didn't have the specialist skills. They said they tried absolutely everything and they couldn't possibly include Emily, and they also said that she was regressing at school and she wasn't happy there. So like I said, this was totally out of the blue, and also got really upset when this was said. But me and my husband did vehemently disagree with everything that was said here. We made it very clear that Emily absolutely was not going to special school again. That really wasn't what we wanted, and that she was happy at Lower Park, and that's where we wanted her to continue to go to school. We did ask the head teacher, at the meeting and several times in writing after this, what are Emily's needs? What is it that you can't meet? And he was never able to tell us what Emily's needs were or why he couldn't meet them. So anyway, at this meeting, the educational psychologist was there, so I turned to him and said, is there anything you can do to help? Could you go into school and maybe give the school some strategies? And some weeks later he did go into school, and he produced a perfectly reasonable, straightforward report for the school with very simple strategies about how to promote Emily's learning. Nothing that required any specialist skills or training. And I also mentioned too at this meeting that I knew Joe Whittaker, who's talking to us today, and his friend Ken Jupp, who've both got masses of experience in inclusive education, and I said I'm sure they would be happy to come along and give you whatever help you need with what you're struggling with to include Emily. So Joe and Ken did go into school again some time later, met with the head and some of the staff, and offered whatever training the school would like, whatever they were struggling with, they'd help. But the school never contacted Joe or Ken after that meeting. So it got to the summer holidays. The head teacher wouldn't actually say the words that he wanted Emily to leave the school, although obviously from that meeting that was severely the impression that we got. And in fact he'd said to Joe and Kenneth that he didn't want Emily to leave, and he'd said that to us, but obviously it didn't make any sense. So Sue Tompkins from the local authority was the person that had been coming to Emily's statement reviews. So I emailed her before some holidays and said, what's happening? Obviously we had this horrendous meeting, we've not heard anything since. So she arranged to come to our house in August with her manager, Pam Robertson, from the local authority. And they basically said they'd confronted Ian Coulson, the head teacher at Lower Park, and asked him, what is it you want? And he basically said he did want Emily to leave the school. He would consider having her out of school a couple of afternoons a week to play, but that was it. He'd also said that he felt the educational psychologist's report was biased to us, and he wasn't happy to accept the recommendations. Although there was no opinion in there, it was just, simple strategies to promote Emily's learning. And he also wasn't happy to accept training from Joe and Ken. So it became apparent to me and my husband at this meeting with Sue and Pam that the local authority were powerless really to do anything about this situation, which to us seemed totally absurd. You know, how could the school refuse to do these simple things which would have, you know, helped them to include Emily? Anyway, they said to us that they thought our time at Lower Park was finished and would we look at other mainstream schools. But we said to them, they're both the children, we've got 2 children there, we want them to be at the same school. They're both happy at Lower Park, whatever they're saying, and that's where we want them to go. And we said she's absolutely not going to a special school. So they left our house, and the outcome was that Emily would go back to school in year 3, and we'd need to have another review meeting in the autumn term to see how things were working out. But there was never any more meetings, and Emily did go back to school, and the teacher in year 3 was really good actually, and things were looking quite positive. But on the 2nd of October, a proposed amended statement arrived in the post, naming Park Lane Special School in Part 4. And obviously we wrote back immediately saying that was totally unacceptable, which they obviously already knew. But before they could even have acknowledged our reply, they sent the final version of the statement out. So basically that put us in the position where we had to go to tribunal to keep Emily at the school with her brother and her friends. I mean, it just was hideous really. I mean, I did keep going to school, but by this point I just absolutely hated going there, and I just lost all respect for the head teacher and several of the staff there. But I did keep going because the kids were happy. But I'd been thinking about home education whilst all this hideous mess was going on. So me and my husband made the decision that we would go to tribunal just out of principle, but after the court case, our plan was I was going to take them out of school and home educate them. But unfortunately, Emily's teaching assistant, one of the good things about school, she'd always had fantastic teaching assistants that I got on really well with. Well, a couple of days after the statement arrived, I had a conversation with one of Emily's teaching assistants, which made me realise that she wasn't my friend after all. And I just made the decision that I didn't want Emily to go into that hostile environment really, protected by somebody that I didn't trust anymore. So I took them both out of school on the 4th of October, and I've been home educating them ever since. And that's what I want to continue doing. I absolutely never want to put my children back into school again. But I just think it's absolutely wrong that this happened. And I just wish I had the strength to go to tribunal really. So that's all. Yeah.